Hey, what's going on, everybody? Welcome to my journey to technical lead at Disney Plus. The very first thing that we're going to do is actually launch a poll. If you'd like to apply to join our exclusive Outco Slack community that consists of job-seeking software engineers, please feel free to launch the poll that was just launched. We're going to be jumping right into the event overview. First and foremost, welcome. We're going to be starting with an introduction to Outco, an introduction to myself, Cristina, and Alec, which should take about 5 minutes. And then we're going to be jumping into my journey to technical lead at Disney Plus, the conversation with Cristina and Alec for about 45 minutes. And then we have a Q&A at the end for about 10 minutes. For those who don't know, Outco was founded in 2015 in San Francisco, and we're essentially a career accelerator for software engineers. We're a coaching and skill sharpening service. We've helped place over 2,000 job-seeking software engineers at their dream jobs. And if you're interested in learning more, we have classes in Eastern Standard Time and Pacific Standard Time as well. And actually, what I'm going to do here is end this poll to launch our second poll. If you'd like to learn more about our 10% off New Year sale, please select yes on that poll and we'll send you some more information. Again, I'm Richie Nunez. I'm the Outco Events and Media Coordinator. I'm also the Outco Alumni Community Manager. I've managed over 50 events for Outco that have to do with software engineering, negotiation, resume optimization, whiteboarding, etc. And Cristina, I'll let you introduce yourself.
Thank you so much, Richie. Hi, everybody. I hope your day's going well. My name's Cristina. I am the head of the career program here at Outco, and I have coached over 250 engineers in the past 15 months. Previously, I worked as customer success manager at Drift. I also worked at HubSpot as a channel consultant with our Latin American and US clients. And I also worked at PayPal. So these are some of the tech companies I've worked at in the past. And I'm really, really excited to be here today and to meet Alec, because we actually worked together at HubSpot, but I didn't know him then. So I'll let him quickly and briefly introduce himself.
Hey, I'm Alec. I'm a technical lead at Disney Streaming. I'm working on Disney Plus primarily and a lot of the tooling for our engineers there. I've held a few different IC roles at a few tech companies here in Boston. So before this, I was a staff engineer at a company called educator, senior software engineer working on growth at HubSpot, and then a mid-level junior engineer at a really small startup with like 10 employees called WeSpire. And yeah, I'm happy to be talking to everybody.
Thank you so much. And before we get started with the conversation, I'm going to be launching the last poll of the evening. If you'd like to learn more about Outco, if you find value in this conversation, please join us for an Outco info session at one of the selections at the poll that I just dropped. And without any further ado, Cristina and Alec, please take it away.
Thank you, Richie. So I hope everybody has finished the poll. I'll give you another 20 seconds or so to fill that out before I get started into my conversation with Alec, which I'm super excited about. And we're both in Boston, which I just found out today. I don't know why I thought he was on the West Coast. So East Coast in the house. Just curious, who are people who are here? Is anyone from the Boston area in this room? Or most people from the West Coast? Where are you guys calling in from? Oh, Kiani says me. Okay, nice. Oh, I see some New York. I'm looking at the chat. What else we got? Houston, Oakland. Richie's in Oakland, New York, Colorado. All right, cool. So it looks like we have a few people from Bean and a lot of people from Caracas. Very cool. I did not expect that. That's awesome. Well, welcome everybody. Welcome to today's discussion. So I know you guys are here obviously to learn more about Alex. I'll keep my talking to the minimum. And I definitely want to learn more about his journey too. So why don't we just dive right in? So first and foremost, Alec, I know that you are from Los Angeles. I know that you are Mexicano. And I know that, you know, a lot of times in especially Latino cultures, we don't know very much about STEM. We don't know very much, or at least our families don't know very much about, you know, science and engineering and math as kind of a journey to take in your career. So I'm actually really curious, how did you even end up learning about engineering or software development?
Yeah. I guess I'll start at like the very, very beginning and then kind of work my way back to today. So I think I started getting interested in like software even before I knew what I was doing, probably back in high school. I remember like when Tumblr was a huge thing when I was in high school. I was trying to make all like the themes in like
Yep.
HTML. And I thought that was really cool. And I remember like creating like my first little like hover animation over a button. And I was like, this is amazing. I want to do this. And so I had started doing that, but I had never really considered doing it professionally, just because like no one in my family had like taken that career path as well, and I didn't really know what it was doing. I think my family thought I was like making video games or just like putzing around on the computer for a really, really long time. And so I had been working in like California, and I was going to a community college out there, and I was trying to figure out what I wanted to do. And I originally thought I had wanted to go into marketing, and so I took like a couple side classes in that and trying to figure out what I wanted to do. And then I was like, you know what? I'm going to try and commit to it. I'm going to try and go for like computer science, even though I have literally no idea what I'm doing.
Wow.
So I applied to a few universities all over the country. And I'd gotten to a position where like I'd come out to my family, but my family was very like strict Hispanic, very traditional. And so that didn't go so well. I had no financial backing. So now I was like, okay, I want to pursue this, no financial backing, trying to figure it out for myself. And so I was just like, I'm just going to go for it. So I had gotten into a university out here in Boston, and I just like went for it. I took all my stuff across the country, like no money, no financial backing, which sounded like a really bad idea to most people at the time. But I had come out here and I'd been taking classes in computer science. And for me, I had spent like a year and a half kind of sleeping on like my friends' couches because like my things went down with my family. And so I didn't have any money. And so I was really trying to figure out how can I both keep myself financially stable while taking these classes and progressing myself forward. And so I started looking around the Boston area for a couple of internships that would at least get me through the door. Yeah. And so I found a small startup accelerator here in Boston called Mass Challenge. So I had started with them. So they had maybe like dozens of very small startups working in an accelerator program. And I was basically, my job as an intern there was to kind of talk to all of them, see what they needed resources wise from the tech side of things. So that kind of exposed me to, hey, this is an actual career path. Here's all these people like kind of pursuing what they want to do in tech. And that kind of showed me all of the options that were available to me there. And so I had started talking to people and networking, and eventually towards the end of that internship, somebody that I had worked with that also worked at the startup accelerator left there. And they were like, hey, I'm going to this really small startup. It's like 3 engineers, but do you want to become like an intern on there at the company? And I was like, I can go, but I know literally nothing. So it would be like, I know very, very basic HTML. But he was like, yeah, sure, I'll teach you. So I had been really, really lucky to be given that opportunity by somebody that I'd worked with. But I started on this job, and I was like struggling hard. So I had been thrown into a full stack Ruby on Rails. And I had no idea what I wanted to do. I had no idea what SQL was. I had no idea what like JavaScript was at the time. And so I was trying to figure it out. And so for a long time, it was this mix of going to school, working, and then all that time like finishing homework and then teaching myself everything that school wouldn't teach me, but that I actually needed for my internship. And so there was this kind of disparity between what I was learning at school and like what I needed for my job and like what I was actually doing. And so I'd worked there for probably about like a year and a half. And over that time, I had realized that I didn't really like back-end development, and I really liked kind of going back to that. What I originally liked was like front-end development, because I really liked seeing what I was doing and interacting with users. and all that stuff. So I was like, you know what? I'm just gonna apply to a bunch of jobs. I'm not gonna tell them that I'm going to school. I'm just gonna tell them that I'm working at a startup right now and see what recruiters respond to me. And so I had like done a mass job. Like I sent applications to a bunch of places, and eventually a recruiter from HubSpot reached back out to me. So gone through
Wow.
the interview process with them, and they were like, listen, just interview as if you're interviewing for a full-time job, but if you get it, we'll put you as an internship, or we'll do you full, like convert you to full-time, whatever you feel like. So I had gone through that interview process, and they were like, you passed to get a full-time job. So now the option was like, hey, do I take a full-time salary, which was like 6 figures at that time? And so I was in this position where I'm like, okay, what is my priorities? I've never had this much financial stability in my entire life. Up to that point, I was like scared of, like, there were points where I was like overdrafting my checking account because I had no money, and I was like struggling to, how am I going to make rent, and how am I going to buy dinners and stuff. And so that was like a huge turning point for me. And I think that was the point where I realized that I could like focus only on what I really wanted to do and grow myself in my career. And so I took that and started going with that. But I think where Cristina and I overlapped was I felt like really, really fortunate at that point, where I had gone from like not having any money and constantly being in the negative on all my accounts and like struggling to get to this point. And so I think this was like really early on with Resilient Coders, which is a nonprofit here in Boston that teaches.
I want to dive in. You just gave me an amazing story.
Yeah, please go.
I'm sure so many people here have so many questions.
Yes, please.
Because your story, I'm sure, resonates with quite a few people. I actually see someone in the chat says it's comforting to know that we all don't know what we're doing when we're starting out.
Yeah, I had no idea what I was doing.
Yeah, I think a lot of people, in general, a lot of young people who are just figuring out their next career path or career move are in the same boat, right? So my question for you, seeing that you literally moved across the country with maybe $10 in your pocket, you didn't know what you were going to do, you just knew that you had a dream of hopefully making it work in the computer science engineering space. How did you stay motivated? Like what was that like driving force for you behind all of this hard work that you did and all the challenges that you faced? Like, how did you stay motivated?
That is a good question. I think part of it was like, I wanted to do something with like my life and follow my passions that was bigger than where like my situation currently was. So like, I felt like I didn't want my situation to define what I would like my future. I wanted to get myself into a position where I was like, I can make my future what I want it to be. And engineering happened to be this really good mix of, hey, it pays a lot of money. Hey, it's actually something that I really, really enjoy doing. And something that was really big for me was that everything that I learned every single day had immediate ROI on my salary. So like, if I learned X skill, I knew I would be able to command like X salary. And that was a huge point for me too. So it's kind of a mix of all three that was motivating me. I think part of it too was like, I was in a position where I was like scared, where I didn't want to go back. So it was this constant feeling of, I need to push myself forward. I want to keep pushing myself forward so that I don't have to feel this way again.
I love that. I think that, this is something that I teach a lot of my engineers in Outco, is that, it's not necessarily if you're the smartest person in the room or if you're the best developer in the world. It really has to come down to, what is your work ethic? Do you have grit? Are you willing to try anything possible to make something work? And people can really see that in an interview. Like, people can feel your passion and feel your work, your work ethic and your energy in an interview.
For sure.
Even if, like, say, for example, a lot of times when I'm helping engineers with their interviewing skills, they're like, well, I feel like it's a test, and if I fail the whiteboard or if I get the algorithm wrong, I'm not going to get the job. And I'm like, not necessarily true, right? Because if you're able to explain yourself, explain how you got to that solution, maybe it wasn't the right solution, But if you're able to really verbalize it and explain, your thought process, and able to show, this is how I got to this, to where I am, and be able to explain your value add the way I feel like you probably did at HubSpot or WeSpire and all these places. Interviewers and recruiters, they really, they value that. That's actually very valuable. Like that emotional intelligence, the social skills, to be on an engineering team. So that's awesome. I love to hear that. And when you were sharing your story, Alec, you talked a lot about networking.
Yep.
Talked a lot about kind of throwing a wide net, seeing what caught, meeting mentors along the way. I would love to hear a little bit more about, your how did building your network really help you on your career trajectory? Was there a specific mentor? Do you have any advice for any of the engineers in the room on what they could do to really start networking effectively?
Yeah, I think originally when I had started, and I will preface this with saying I am an introvert. So like, I'm not the person who's going to,
really?
I know, crazy. Like, I'm not going to go to the person that's super proactive about seeing everybody. I think two tips that I'd really give is like, one, I think when I first started out, I think I thought that people didn't want to help me. And then as I became more senior, I realized that people are want to help junior engineers break into the industry. People want to give you those opportunities, especially with like everything that's happening today in the world. I think don't be afraid to reach out and kind of ask for help when you need it. I think you'll be surprised at how many people are willing to help. And I think the second one is just be authentically you. I think a lot of the time people come across where they're trying to network or like trying to be someone that they're not. I think when people can tell that you are authentically yourself, whether you're an introvert or an extrovert or whoever, just show that you're passionate about what you're doing and show like who you are as a person, what your values are. And I think that will take you a really long way.
Yeah, I absolutely love that because I feel the same way when I'm coaching engineers. Is they're always like, oh, I have to put on a show in the interview, and I'm like, no, you actually don't. You should be you. You should be you, but you should know how to communicate your value and communicate, very effectively when you're talking to someone and talk about projects and be able to provide examples and things like that. But you don't have to be anyone else because people want to get to know you authentically. Like, who are you? What are you about? What do you value? What motivates you? So I love that you said that, reach out, ask for help. I think a lot of people are afraid to ask for help or they feel like they're going to be rejected or somebody's going to say, no, I'm not going to help you. But that's not necessarily the case. And it sounds like a lot of people offered help for you along your career, and that's probably why you are where you are now. So, so Alec, I would love to know a little bit more, in your opinion, what was the most difficult part for you of transitioning into an engineering career?
Yeah, I think the hardest part was just breaking down that first door of getting the first job. I think that part involved a lot more networking, and I think a lot more not only like insight into like learning those hard technical skills, but it's also trying to figure out what do I want? Like, what do I want to work on? And then I think the other hardest part is like learning how to be okay with not knowing things. I think while I was kind of going through this and teaching myself all those things, I think early on I was really, really hard on myself that I didn't know what I was doing on a daily basis at my first engineering job. And I think that one of the harder things about breaking into it was kind of pivoting that mindset from, I don't know this, and this is a fault of mine, to turning that into, hey, I'm actually curious on how this works. Let me go out and learn it. And I think when you try to shift your mindset to that, it's recognizable by everyone on your team. And I think internally, you might think it's like not knowing, but showing outward curiosity is a huge boon to your like reputation at a company, or just how you grow as your career in general.
Yeah, I love that. I love that. We teach a lot about moving from the fixed mindset that it sounds like you kind of had when you first started into a growth mindset where you look at failure as an opportunity to learn.
Yeah.
Right. You look at, okay, I don't understand this as, okay, well, let me see how I can understand it.
Right.
I absolutely love that. And I recommend for everyone, engineer or not, to have a growth mindset, because at the end of the day, we're not perfect, right? We're all learning, we're all figuring things out. And as long as we stay, humble and curious, I think that will take people really far. So I love that you talked about that. What recommendations do you have for anyone in the room who's maybe trying to land their first engineering job and they're maybe on the search right now? Do you have any recommendations that really worked for you?
Yeah, I had, don't be afraid. I would say 2 tips. First one is don't be afraid of the rejection that may come with that first batch. Like I said, like getting the first job is so difficult because there is some bias as by companies that think like, hey, you're more junior. If I give you this opportunity, it's going to be a cost to me. And that's a reflection on the company, not on you. So don't be afraid of applying to a bunch of places and don't get discouraged when you're kind of going out there. The second one is that putting a face to your application is really good. So don't be afraid to reach out to recruiters directly instead of applying through the actual company's job board. So if you're interested in a company, reach out to them and say, hey, these are my skill sets. Here's my value add. Would you happen to have any opportunities that might fit my role? It's the recruiter's job to try and make the candidate successful. And so that's what they're there for, is to give you advice or tell you maybe that your resume needs another look over or something like that. Don't be afraid of that. Yeah.
I think you should teach at our program, Alec. Because it's literally what a lot of the tips that you just gave are a lot of the things that we teach at Outco. And one of the most important, in my opinion, one of the most important skills we teach is this concept of what you just said. We call it reverse recruiting, which is essentially recruiting for yourself, right?
Yes.
So instead of, waiting for people to reach out to you and hoping that someone will see your resume out of the hundreds of resumes that are submitted on LinkedIn or Indeed or whatever, which is, just so you all know in this room, it's all a numbers game. It's chance, it's luck. If somebody, maybe you were the first 100 applicants, they only look at the first 100. And then after that, good luck. So I think the way Alec, he went about his journey and, finding a job was actually the best way to do it. So kudos, Alec. I think you should definitely be one of our teachers at Outco. So I highly recommend everybody take that type of, approach on the job search. So I want to ask, so I see here that you've gone from WeSpire to HubSpot to educator, now to Disney. And I definitely want to get into Disney, not yet though, but definitely going to get into that. How did you make those transitions? What was it that drew you from WeSpire to HubSpot and then to educator to Disney? So how did you make that happen?
Yeah, I think another thing that I've kind of learned is that not only when you're working at a company, it's really helpful to think what do I want? What do I want from my own career? And to define what a career ladder looks like for you. So I think what a lot of people think when they go into a company is how can I climb this company's career ladder? How do I change my behavior or what I want to what fits the mold of what the next level is in this company's career? And I think one of the huge things there is is asking yourself, does this company fit what I want? So what am I getting? Do I feel like I'm growing as an individual contributor, as an employee? Am I getting what I want? Am I feeling challenged enough? That kind of stuff. So I think at each point of my kind of jumping off point, the answer that I gave myself was no, it doesn't. And so the question to my next step was what do I look for? So when I went from HubSpot to educator, I was trying to figure out how can I be in a position where I build more empathy with the people that I'm building with. And so that was on a team with internal tools. When I went to HubSpot, the decision was how do I, the next rung on my career ladder was how do I build software for a larger audience, so on a larger scale, or how do I dive more into front-end development and finding a position that really gave me that experience. So I think those jumping off points, I kind of use the techniques that I spoke about earlier, but the reason why I jumped all those things was because I realized that the company's career ladder didn't necessarily align with my own kind of goals. So really kind of looking inward in your career path too.
Wow, that's great. You're very introspective. Alec. And I love to hear that. And, I feel like that's kind of the natural progression for a lot of people is, once they feel that maybe they're not being challenged anymore and there's really not room for growth in the way they want to grow, that that's a good sign to maybe try something else and move on to something that is going to challenge you and excite you every single day. So I love that you went ahead and did that. So with that being said, so you kind of explained what drew you to Disney, but I would love to learn more about, what was it about Disney Plus specifically that you felt you really wanted to be a part of, and how did you kind of transition into that? Because I'm assuming Disney's not an easy place to get a engineering role. A lot of people want to work there.
Yeah. So I think I had really enjoyed Disney like my entire time growing up. I grew up in like Los Angeles, so I had gone to Disneyland since I was really little. And so I was working at educator, which is a company that profits on group catering. And so when the pandemic hit, I was trying to figure out, okay, well, what is the next step? Because the company had kind of had some hard times. And so I was thinking about COVID and all the things that came out of that. And my thought process was, okay, well, maybe this actually presents an opportunity where companies will hire remotely where they wouldn't have otherwise. So I thought about a few different companies where I'm like, okay, where would I really want to work? And I had reached out to a recruiter at Disney Streaming. Disney Plus had just launched, not the last year, but the year before that. And
I love Disney Plus, by the way. It's the best.
Yeah. Yeah, I love Disney Plus. Yeah, we watch WandaVision and Soul and all that stuff here too. But so I had like reached out to a recruiter. And it's actually, I had applied for a position that is not my current title, specifically because I wanted to like join Disney Plus, but they didn't have a job type, like a job description that matched what I did. So I reached out to a recruiter and was like, hey, this seems a little bit like what I do, but do you have a position for me? And they did. So I went through the interview process. I think I'm one of maybe like 8 people that works remotely all the time. Wow. But it allows, but COVID presented the opportunity to work remotely. And so I'm really excited about that. So part of it is like, I really like Disney, but the other part of it is just like the massive scale that Disney Plus operates on. It's fun to kind of solve those challenges.
Yeah, that's awesome. So I heard a couple of things. So you mentioned that you reached out to a recruiter. Yep. So I would love to hear, and I'm sure other engineers in the room or maybe job seekers in the room would love to hear, how did you reach out to the recruiter exactly? What did you say to get them to want to talk to you?
And so I've done this a few times. Like I've done it to Spotify, I've done it to a couple of different places. And I think even though I had the title of staff software engineer at educator, I had reached out to a few different recruiters at Disney, and I think maybe 4 recruiters, and 3 of them did not even respond to me. So that will happen no matter what your title and what level you're at.
Yeah. So most of them didn't respond until you got one.
Yeah, most of them did not respond to me.
That's great.
And so one of them did, and they were like, we can try and figure something out. And so let's just see how you like do with the team. And so I had gone through the interview process there, but 75% of them were like rejections by no response. And then one of them reached out, and all I said was like, hey, here's like my experience, and here's like my resume. Let me know. Here's a job. I like copy pasted the job title that seemed tangential. And I was like, hey, here's how it differs. Is that okay? Also, I would be full-time remote. No, so that would be a huge caveat. And then it's just like, let's kind of start you with the process.
Wow, that's amazing. And then I hope everyone heard that, 75% of people did not reply to Alec, and that, that did not deter him, because you will have that growth mindset that you're like, okay, if you're not going to respond, someone else will. So I'm going to keep trying until someone responds. And that's something that I also share and coach engineers on all the time is, most of the time, 99% of the time, if someone doesn't respond, it has nothing to do with you. right? Either they haven't seen the message, they're busy, maybe they saw it and they're like, I'm going to get back to it, and they forget. So I just want everyone in the room just to realize, you know, you miss all the shots that you don't take, right? And you have to take those shots, and you know, you keep taking the shot until you hit it. And that's what Alec did, and it looks like you've kind of done that throughout your whole engineering career and journey, and that's why you are where you are today. So I would love to learn a little bit more about what is your exact role at Disney Plus now. Like, what do you actually work on? Like, what part of the platform or what part of the Disney Plus services are you working on right now?
Yeah, so Disney Plus, I work on Disney Plus Web, so everything on disneyplus.com.
Okay.
And so I sit on a team called Web Client Architecture. Our team is kind of right now is kind of looking at higher scale architecture of the web client. So the web client is React and Redux, some GraphQL in there, and a whole slew of other kind of front-end libraries. And we kind of digest things like, okay, and I can say this only because it was on the investor call, I think a few months ago, but they're coming out with like a product called Star. What does that look like as it pertains to Disney Plus? What does the architecture look like? How do we share code? If Disney says, hey, we're launching in like a new payment method in Latin America, I look at the web app and say, hey, it takes like a month and a half to add a button to this because the logic is so complex. Let's come up with an architecture plan that helps us get to a place where teams can work on that a lot more efficiently. And then just kind of building empathy with ground level feature developers and say, hey, what is the most annoying part of your job and how can I fix it, basically. So building a lot of internal tooling, working on coming up with like a design system with a coworker now for Disney Plus, working with Hulu. Hulu is a part of Disney now, so now
I saw that.
Yeah, so now it's like converging on like, hey, now that Disney's payment methods, like now that Hulu is Disney, and I think Disney's advertising that Hulu, Disney Plus, ESPN bundle, like how do we share code between us and Hulu? So it's a lot of these higher level architecture decisions, figuring out what scales, what doesn't, what pains are developers feeling, how can we fix that, things like that.
Wow, that's really cool. I didn't know ESPN was also owned by Disney. I just learned that. So how has it been? I know you've been at Disney Plus for like 6 months, right? That's what I've seen on your LinkedIn. I've stalked your LinkedIn. So how was it like? Obviously, you started there in the midst of the pandemic and COVID and everything kind of going fully remote, which is why you got the job, right? Because you are in Boston and you're fully remote. So how was it for you joining a new engineering team amongst, you know, this kind of craziness where everybody's figuring out how to work in a remote culture? Like, how was that for you, the transition into that?
Yeah, it was weird. I'm not gonna lie, it's really weird. I think I'm used to when I'm joining a new team, we go out to like lunch or like there's always coffee breaks to socialize and you get to know one another. I think something that I've realized is conversations have been a lot more like intimate, like a lot more one-on-one conversations have been naturally rather than kind of these group settings. And so I've noticed that that's a big shift, but it's not a negative one. I think one-on-one conversations like facilitate a lot more like honesty, and you get to know someone a lot more rather than you know you're going out to a bar and drinking with somebody, or you're going out to get coffee and it's like superficial chat, but like you really get to know people. So I wouldn't say it's been bad. It's just different than what I've been used to, and took a little bit of getting used to, but overall, it's pretty good.
Yeah. Okay. That's great to hear, because I know a lot of companies are struggling to figure out how to manage their teams and kind of get everybody to be collaborative and in this like workspace where everybody feels so isolated. And so I'm wondering if you have any advice, especially for anyone in the room that may be their first time getting an engineering role in COVID, right? Where they probably won't meet their team in person and who knows God knows how long. Do you have any advice, like, I guess in terms of what kind of companies or maybe even like mentorship opportunities or any type of like programs or training programs in a tech company or any type of company that you recommend they kind of look for, especially if it's like their first software engineering role? Because I know for myself, and I've spoken to a lot of engineers who are maybe fresh grads, computer science grads, or this is their first time getting an engineering role. They really want that training. They really want that support and that kind of mentorship. Is there anything that you recommend that they
Yeah.
look?
Yeah, I think I would say the first instinct is like, even outside of COVID, is like DMing somebody on Slack that you don't really know is like a very weird thing to do. Or like, it's not weird, but it's like it's a hurdle that you need to overcome, right? It's the same thing as like asking for help. But I would say if you see somebody that you look up to or has skill sets that you want to emulate, or maybe it's like, hey, they know how to work with SQL really well, or hey, they are expert on React, or even if it's soft skills where it's like, hey, this person really knows how to give, like publicly speak and like give tech talks. Don't be afraid to DM them and like set up regular coffee chats with them, and just ask questions on a regular basis. Like then it becomes like a gradual, organic kind of mentorship. It's okay to be like, hey, do you mind, even in COVID, it's like, hey, do you mind grabbing coffee for like 30 minutes on Wednesday, just to, I have a few questions, and at the end of that conversation say, hey, would you mind having this be recurring just for advice and like mentorship as I'm getting started? I think people are super, super open to that, and more than you might expect. So I'd say if you see people that you kind of look up to or have skill sets that you want to emulate, don't be afraid to reach out to them and ask for help or advice on a recurring basis. It's pretty good.
I think that's great advice. I think a lot of people, it's this like fear of rejection or fear that they're bothering the person or something. But I do think a lot more people are willing to help than you would think. So I always actually recommend engineers to reach out to, if they're, interested in a role at a particular company, to definitely reach out to a recruiter, but also reach out to maybe an engineer on that team that you're interested in joining. Because at the end of the day, the recruiter is always going to tell you good things. They're always going to say, this is the best place to work. Like, you definitely want to be here, the best benefits and all these things. But the engineers that actually will do the work that you're going to be doing, they can really tell you how it is, right? They can really tell you about the culture, about, how the team works together, about how the product is being made and all these things. And they can give you a better sense as well as to, is this a good environment for me? Is this going to help me? Is this going to give me the support that I need to really excel at my job or maybe get to that next level? So I love that you have done so much outreach. You have no shame. Like I'm going to talk to somebody. No shame. I love that. And I think more people need to realize that there actually are people there that want to help and support you. And not to be afraid to ask. And of course, if someone says no, that's okay too, right? Go to the next person, because maybe people are busy and have other things that they're doing, but there's a lot of people who are willing to help. And I know, Alec, that I wanted to kind of transition to, I know that you also do a lot of helping in the community as well. I actually heard of you back in the day when I was working with Resilient Coders. I actually, which is a nonprofit organization in Boston that helps Black and brown students become software engineers, full stack software developers. And this was like in 2000.
Yeah, I think it was a while ago.
It was like 2016, it was a while ago. I was actually mentoring some of their students there and helping them with their interviewing skills, with their resumes, their LinkedIn profiles, just doing that kind of work with them. And somebody wrote RC, yeah. And so I just want to know, I heard about you through that program because I know you were one of their mentors. So can you tell me a little bit about how you give back to the community and why do you do that?
Yeah, so I did Resilient Coders. I did a couple of boot camps. I've done a couple of like talks. I think part of it is that even on a daily basis at work, like I want a diversity of perspectives to challenge me constantly. And so I really want to foster that within the community. Programs like Outco, like several boot camps like RC, are programs that traditionally have a lot of diverse candidates. And so anything that like I can do to help promote diversity and diversity of perspectives in the industry is like going to help everyone. And it's something that I want in my own environment. So it's something that I try to proactively help in the community.
I love that. And you know, that program, so people, if anyone's interested in checking it out, it's called Resilient Coders. They just opened a second branch. I saw it in Philadelphia.
Yeah, in Philly. Yeah, I saw that.
Super exciting. And so I know I do want to leave some time for questions from the audience. So if anyone in the audience does have any pressing questions, anything that they want to know about Alec, feel free to write it in the Q&A or in the chat, and I'm happy to share some of those questions. But I have a couple more questions before we open it up to the audience, just because I can talk to you forever. So I want to know, you know, now that you've kind of been in the engineering world and space for, what's it been, like 5-6 years now? Would you say 6?
Yep.
6 years. If you could give yourself a piece of advice, if you could go back 7 years ago, young Alec who's trying to figure out his life, if you could give yourself a piece of advice when you started, what do you wish you would have known back then?
Yeah, I think I would tell myself, like, don't be too hard on yourself. I think the thing that I realized is like everyone's just figuring it out as they go. Like, no matter what your level, no matter if you're like the CEO or like a ground level, tech changes so much that there's no way that you'll know everything. And so because of that, everybody's constantly adapting and everybody's constantly trying to learn and figure things out as they go. And so don't feel like you're the only one. Everyone's doing it, just with more experience on how things have happened in the past. And so I think I was really hard on myself. The imposter syndrome was really real. So I'd say don't worry about it too much.
Yeah, I love that, because that's actually one of the things I teach in my coaching with Outco is, you know, the way that you, let's say, for example, your friend is struggling and they're asking you for help. You wouldn't tell, you know, say they messed something up. You wouldn't tell your friend, hey, you're stupid. Like, how did you not get that right? Right? You wouldn't tell that to your friend. So you shouldn't tell yourself that either. Right? So like, if you mess something up, if you're not doing something perfectly, it's okay. And practice self-empathy. It's really huge. Because, you know, you internalize that, right? If all you do is beat yourself up all day, you're going to feel beat up at the end of the day. And so I think that's really important to just remember that making mistakes, learning, constantly challenging yourself is a way of growing and learning. And it's part of the process, right? No one started perfect, right? And even, you know, Mark Zuckerberg made mistakes in the beginning before creating Facebook. So my last question for you before I open it up to the audience is what can people do to continue learning and growing in their current software engineering roles? What advice do you have for them?
Yeah, I think there's two big ones. One is that as you grow in your career, whether you're just starting out or you're kind of there already, make sure that you not only focus on the technical aspect, so learning new skills, how to build things more scalable, but also make sure you focus on the soft skills. Things like, how do I build consensus within a group? How do I propose my ideas? How do I like give tech talks? How do I present ideas in a meeting? All of those things you need as you like grow as an engineer. So make sure that you focus on those things just as much as your technical skill sets, because as you grow as an engineer, it becomes less measuring success by your own output and more measuring success by those around you. So really focusing on your soft skills is important. I think the second part is that something that really helped me was, instead of kind of just picking up tickets as I go, for like features, really focusing on how is the work that I'm doing impacting the business, and trying to put that into numbers. So like, I increased page load speed by X percentage, which increased conversion by Y percentage, which increased the money that we get from this by like $10,000. Trying to seek out that data on how you are impacting the business is going to help you not only in your current company, but also if you choose to switch companies, recruiters will look for those numbers. So it'll help you either way.
That's great. No, that's really great advice. I always tell people, keep your own personal log of
Yes.
accomplishments, right? Because you will forget. You're going to forget
Yep.
because time passes and you're like, oh, I know I did all these things, but I forgot and I didn't write them down. So definitely recommend, like, great recommendations. And I encourage everyone, whether you're an engineer or not, to just keep a running list of accomplishments that you can draw back to when you have an interview or when you're talking to a recruiter, or if you want to get a promotion, right? Have like a log of, well, these are all the contributions and accomplishments that I made while working at educator or wherever it is that you
Right.
work. So thank you so much, Alec. We actually have quite a few questions in the chat. So I'm gonna just ask you a few of them that I see here. I'm gonna take some from the Q&A poll first, just because those came in pretty early. Dave wants to know, were you still going to school while working at HubSpot? If so, what school?
Yeah, I had originally, when I had gone to Boston, I joined Suffolk University. So I had been going there.
Okay, cool. So you were going to school and working full time?
Yes, yeah. When I was Wiesbayer, definitely, yeah.
Wow, okay. Cool. Now the next person wants to know, Giuseppe, I think I said your name right. He wants to know, which programming language do you do your leak codes?
I am JavaScript all the way. I tried Ruby. It's not my passion. I can do it, but I really, really like JavaScript.
Awesome. Evelyn would like to know, hi, Alex, you mentioned you're using React at Disney. Do you have a preference between class components design versus React hooks?
We are trying to go all in on React hooks. We are getting bit by higher order components for components or class-based. So all the way on React hooks.
React hooks all the way. I don't know what that means, but yeah, awesome. Let's see. Dave wants to know, he wants to make sure he understands this concept of reaching out to recruiters. He says, did Alex send an email to 3 recruiters at Disney Plus and none of them responded? And after that, Alex sent an email to the 4th recruiter who did reply?
Yes. So I had reached out. I think I was trying to figure out what I wanted to do. I had reached out to Netlify. I had reached out to a couple of Disney recruiters, and like none of them responded. And then finally, I reached out again, and that last recruiter did respond.
Awesome. Yeah. So you see, there was 3 no's or 3 no responses until you got a yes.
Yep.
I love that. Vishnu wants to know, how do you overcome the fear of algorithms?
If it's in technical interviews, I don't think that fear ever goes away. I really dread algorithm, but I think one way to get around it, and I've had algorithm questions in my interviews, is just practicing. So I think like Leak Code was on there. I have like algorithm books and Cracking the Coding interview back here. And just trying to brush up and re-implement things before the interview has been really helpful. So it doesn't go away no matter what the experience level, just practicing.
Yeah, practice. Or you can join Outco and you can practice with Outco.
There you go.
Kind of what we do.
Yeah.
Awesome. Darla wants to know, does Disney have an apprenticeship program for the underrepresented community?
I don't know if there's a formal apprenticeship program, but we are hiring at all levels. So if you are interested, reach out to me on LinkedIn and I can point you towards a recruiter. I think I think Disney will be releasing something for D&I and kind of our push on there. So anything that any way that I can be a resource, I'm happy to do that.
Awesome, thank you. I see you have quite a few questions, so I'm going to just keep rolling them out.
Yeah, keep them coming.
Keep them coming. Okay. The next one's from Mohammed. He says, what tools did you use to help you prepare for technical interviews?
Yeah, I had looked at, so I'm primarily a JavaScript engineer. And so I had trouble finding some interview prep that helped me. Cracking the Coding interview did help me a little bit. A book called Eloquent JavaScript helped me understand some deeper technical things. I'm trying to like.
I see your library back there.
Here. Yeah. I think there was one that was like re-implementing data structures and algorithms in JavaScript that helped me do like first breadth search and linked lists and all that stuff that was in algorithm questions for my interviews. So just trying to figure out books and tutorials and doing it myself kind of helped.
Awesome. Awesome. Yeah. So it sounds like a lot of different things that you tried out.
Yeah.
Not just like one thing. There was a lot of
Yeah.
factors. Awesome. So I have a question here from Francis. It says, what would you say is the biggest difference in day-to-day work jumping from senior software engineer to tech lead? What skills served you best in that transition? It's actually a really good question.
Yeah, it is a really good question. And I think this is something that folks struggle with, even at like my level and above, is, I think I mentioned this before, but it's really measuring, changing your mindset to my success is measured by my output and what I am able to deliver to the team, versus if you're like technical lead, staff, principal, whatever, even if you're an IC and you're not like managing a team, it becomes more on measuring your own success by the output of people around you. So how do I teach other people and empower them with knowledge in order to build better products? How do I build tooling that makes them develop features faster? How do I write architecture that scales and solves a problem so that they never have to think about it ever again and they can focus on harder problems? It becomes, so that was like a mental shift for me, going from like senior to staff and technical. But I think that's the key mindset shift change that comes along with kind of going up the career ladder.
Yeah, I love that. We actually talk a lot about that in the program, and there's levels, right? There's levels of emotional intelligence. First, you start off dependent, whereas like you need all that training, you need the help, you need the support. Then you become independent, where you don't need that, and you can kind of figure things out on your own. You feel comfortable. Then there's interdependent, and those are the leaders, right? Those are the people who, you know, I would say the biggest skill set of that team lead role is the ability to be collaborative, the ability to work on as a team, and empower your team, as you mentioned, and not just think about me, but us, right? So I think that's a huge mindset shift. So thank you for sharing that. Let's see, I have a few more questions. John wants to know, what backend stack does Disney use? Is there a particular reason it was chosen?
I don't work on the back end, but I think they use Scala at Disney Plus, and I think we have a few like of the core. We stole a few of the like core Scala team members. I have no idea why that was chosen. Maybe something about how it can handle real-time connections really well, but I have no idea.
Well, you know what? Who asked that question? John, you should reach out to a back-end engineer at Disney and ask. It's a good
yeah,
way.
there you go. Reach out to somebody.
It's a good way to make a connection. Okay, I see here Jesus says, what if you're working within the company that you're trying to apply for a software developer position? Is there anything different that would have to be done besides prepping your resume and LinkedIn profile?
Yeah, so I think I've seen this go both ways. I've seen it, people switch from one department to another internally. And then sometimes, so in that case, do the exact same thing as kind of reaching out externally. Figure out someone who will kind of be able to mentor you and guide you on what you might need. Maybe you need a few skill sets that need buffing up. Maybe they can help you prep for an interview, especially since you're still working at the company. Maybe you have an insight onto what to expect on those interviews and what you should know. So reach out to people, kind of get guidance on there. And then I've seen cases where maybe it just doesn't work out, or maybe there isn't an opening that makes sense for you at the moment at the company, even though you want to stay at the company. I think figuring out and like learning from people within the company that are in the department that you want to switch to also helps you build those skill sets externally for if you want to apply externally. So like I know somebody who even at HubSpot tried to switch into product design. Those roles were really limited, so it wasn't necessarily like a skill set thing. It was just like the headcount wasn't there. They kind of took that knowledge, switched to a different company in a junior designer role, and they're now like a senior designer at another company. So don't get discouraged if you don't get it at your company or if there's not a position. Like I said, build your own career ladder, figure out what makes sense for you, and then go for it.
Great advice. Thank you. I'm going to take two more questions because we're almost at time. So I see a question here from Kiani. She says, what if you were still in school? Oh, what are some ways to avoid mentioning your skills?
I just omitted it off my resume a lot. And then like if they asked, I told them. Looking back on that, I probably would mention it in the interview at like first contact. So like the thing that I found is that there's bias when they're reviewing resumes. But once they reach out, they're like, you've passed the first hurdle, let them know the position that you're in and what you're looking for. And then you can start off on the right foot from there.
Awesome. And then I'm going to take I think we have time maybe for 2 more. So I see one. How do you find recruiter information? So Kiani, that LinkedIn is
yeah, that's what I do. I just stalk people.
Is your friend. Literally go to a company page on LinkedIn, go to people on the company page. You can find all the recruiters.
Yeah.
So do that.
All I did was Disney recruiter, and then people come up and I sort of keep going through them.
Keep going through them.
There's no trick.
Yeah, Disney LinkedIn is your friend in this case. And then I would say the last question I'm going to take here is from Victoria. Says, what do you think is the best skill we should have to be successful as an engineer?
Yeah, I think it's grit. And so it's not necessarily technical, but I think it's something that you should kind of strive for. So it's kind of like an all-encompassing thing that we've been talking about is don't let like that self-doubt kind of get you down. Whether it's technical or soft skills, keep pushing through. I think the second one is probably empathy. You need empathy for the people that you're building for. You need empathy for the people around you. As you grow more senior, you need empathy for like maybe junior folks are struggling. If you're junior, you need empathy for like what you don't know and kind of that introspection. Mm-hmm. So I would say the 2 skills aren't necessarily technical. It's perseverance and empathy, probably the 2 biggest ones.
Okay, great. Yeah, I think, and I agree. I think perseverance and empathy, not just for others, but for yourself as well. Really, really important. It's part of the growing pains, right? You're not going to get everything right. You're not always going to be perfect, but it's more how do you pick yourself up from that instead of staying in that space. So thank you so much, Alec. This was such a good conversation.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
Proud of all of your success. And I'm excited to see what happens at Disney Plus and and all of your work there. So if anyone wants to reach out to Alec, he is on LinkedIn. He also has his own website.
Oh, that thing's so old too.
I had to do my research. I checked it out. He also has a website. I think it was alecortega.com. Is that what it is?
I think I made that while I was applying to my first job at WeSpire, and that website took me like hundreds of hours at a coffee shop to learn.
You know what? That's probably why you got the job.
Yeah.
So I hope this was helpful for everyone. And as I mentioned before, you get one no, keep going until you get a yes. That would be my biggest piece of advice. And Alec, you are a true testament to that. So thank you so much for your time. And everybody, thank you guys for joining us. And we hope to see you maybe at another Outco event or a class in the future. And have a great rest of your night.
Have a good night. Thank you.
Thanks, everybody. Bye, Richie.